After months of enduring exploitation and betrayal from my toxic tech job, I exposed my manager's lies in front of everyone and walked away. All right, I got to vent. This whole dream job thing is a total load of crap. I graduated, got my computer science degree, and thought I was all set to start raking in the dough. Pay off those insane student loans, maybe even save a little. But no, life decided to hit me with a reality check instead. So I'm working as a junior developer at this tech company in Silicon Valley. They offered me a salary, right? A whole $45 a year. Yeah, that might sound like a lot if you're living anywhere but Silicon Valley. Here, it's a joke. I'm barely scraping by. Like, I get that I'm new and all, but this is supposed to be tech, the industry where they toss money around. Well, not to me, apparently. I've had to choose between paying bills and eating on more than one occasion. I'd like to see my boss try living on that. I'd bet he spends more than that on his stupid golf club membership. No way I can afford a car on that salary. I'm stuck taking the BART from Fremont because that's where I managed to find a halfway affordable place to live. Even then, I can't afford my own spot, so I'm stuck sharing an apartment with two other guys. One of them, Dave, is hardly ever there. He's always out of town on some mysterious trip. I swear the guy could be a spy or something. But the other roommate, Kevin, absolute nightmare. The guy's a pig. Leaves his dishes in the sink for days, socks all over the place, never cleans anything. And here's the kicker, he keeps stealing my food. I mean, I'm just trying to survive on cheap frozen meals and instant noodles, and every time I go to the fridge, something's missing. I confronted him once, and he just shrugged like he had no clue what I was talking about. Total denial. I swear, one day I'm going to catch him in the act and just lose it. It doesn't help that my parents can't really support me either. They spent everything they had on my college tuition. I get it. They did what they could, and I appreciate it. But that means I'm completely on my own now. No backup plan, no emergency fund. Just me, my crappy paycheck, and this miserable job. And the job? Holy hell. It's like walking into some twisted version of The Office. Except imagine if everyone in the office was mean, incompetent, and 100 times more frustrating. There's this guy, Greg, who's supposed to be my mentor. He's been there forever, probably has a cubicle fossilized with old tech magazines or something. Uh, I asked him for help once, just trying to figure out a piece of code that was giving me trouble, and he gave me this look like I just asked him to solve world hunger. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said, "Figure it out." That's his catchphrase, I think. Figure it out. He probably has it embroidered on a pillow at home. Then there's Sarah, my manager. She's like the self-appointed queen of hustle culture. She's always sending these motivational emails about how we're all family here and how teamwork makes the dream work, but it's all total BS. The second something goes wrong, she's throwing people under the bus faster than you can blink. I swear, I've seen her get a guy written up just because he made a tiny mistake in a report. She acts like she's our best friend, but she'd step over any one of us if it meant impressing the higher-ups. And then there's Jason. Good old Jason, the guy who's been here maybe a year longer than me, but he acts like he's some kind of seasoned veteran. He's constantly bragging about how he worked back-to-back shifts or slept under his desk. I'm sitting there thinking, dude, that's not something to be proud of. That's just sad. But he seems to think it makes him some kind of hero. Every time I see him, I just want to smack him and tell him to go home and take a shower. They keep piling on projects that are way above my pay grade, but there's no guidance. They give me vague instructions and expect miracles. I'm clocking 80-hour weeks just trying to keep up, and for what? No overtime, no bonuses, just the same pitiful paycheck every 2 weeks. It's like they expect me to pull magic tricks out of my ass just because I'm the young, new guy. And I can't even afford to eat properly. Half the time I'm living off ramen and stale bread because that's all I can afford after rent, utilities, and the endless expenses that keep popping up. The commute itself is a nightmare. I spend nearly 2 hours each way on the BART packed in like a sardine with people who clearly haven't heard of deodorant. It's almost laughable how I get to work already exhausted and miserable, only to spend my entire day in a fluorescent lit prison surrounded by people I can't stand. By the time I get home, it's dark, and I'm too tired to even think about anything except collapsing on my bed. I used to be excited about this job, about the idea of working in tech and being part of something cool and innovative, but it's all just smoke and mirrors. I'm not building the future. I'm barely surviving the present. Every day it feels like I'm trapped in this endless cycle of stress and exhaustion. And for what? So the higher ups can rake in the cash while I'm stuck here, choosing between food and electricity. Honestly, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I keep telling myself it's just a stepping stone, that I'll find something better, but right now, it feels like this whole tech dream was just a scam. So, after months of grinding through my own personal Silicon Valley hell, something crazy happened at work last week. For once, I actually managed to pull off something impressive. Not that it was easy or anything. No thanks to any of the so called team around me, I had to practically teach myself how to make it happen. But I pulled it off. Let me set the scene. A few weeks ago, Sarah, my manager, dumped a project on my desk with her usual spiel about how this was game changing and how everyone would need to go above and beyond. She loves saying that. Truth is, it was a total mess. Some client wanted us to design a new piece of software to streamline their data management system. They didn't really know what they wanted, and the brief was vague as hell. None of it made sense, and the documentation was garbage. Since Greg was supposed to be my mentor, yeah, right, I thought I'd ask him for some advice on how to approach it. Mistake number one. He basically shrugged and told me to just do whatever. That's how they operate here. They throw you into the deep end with a bunch of broken tools and expect you to somehow build a luxury yacht out of it. So, with nothing to go on, I had to figure it out myself. I spent hours every day after work and during weekends reading up on different coding languages and experimenting with frameworks I'd never used before. By some miracle, I started to piece together a solution. I realized there was a way to integrate a kind of automated reporting tool that would analyze the data in real time and make suggestions based on predictive algorithms. It was way beyond anything I'd done in school, but I was so tired of the grind and the endless crap that I actually got a bit obsessed with it. I mean, if I was going to be stuck doing 80-hour weeks, I might as well make it worth something, right? After 3 weeks of barely sleeping, eating more instant noodles than any human should ever eat, and practically living in my cubicle, I had a working prototype. I was honestly kind of proud of it. I mean, I didn't think I'd get anywhere close to pulling it off, and here I was with a tool that could genuinely change the way this client handled their data. I was pretty nervous about showing it to Greg, but I figured he'd be at least a little impressed. So I called him over, gave him a rundown, and showed him how it worked. And do you know what he did? He just stood there with his arms crossed, watching with this blank look on his face. When I finished, he barely even looked at me. He just muttered, "We don't need fancy bells and whistles," and walked away. That was it. Not a single word of feedback, let alone any sign of encouragement. Classic Greg. I was pissed, but I didn't have time to sit around and fume about it. Sarah came by a few hours later asking how the project was going, and before I could say anything, Greg jumped in and gave her this half-assed version of what I'd just shown him. She seemed impressed, which was weird considering she usually has the emotional range of a rock. Anyway, she told me to finish it up and send it over to the client. Fast forward a week, and we got an email from the client, practically gushing over the new tool. They were thrilled, said it was exactly what they needed and how it would save them thousands of hours of work. It was, hands down, the best feedback I'd seen since I started here. I actually started to feel a little proud, thinking maybe I'd finally earned some recognition. But then the big team meeting. Greg was suddenly all smiles and standing at the front of the room talking about our innovative approach and how we managed to deliver such an incredible product. It didn't take long to realize he was taking credit for everything. The project, the ideas, the implementation, he was claiming it all as if I'd just been some bystander. I looked around the room, hoping someone would realize what was happening, but most people weren't even paying attention. Sarah, though, looked like she'd just seen a unicorn. She was practically glowing, going on about how this was a major step forward for the company and how Greg had really come through. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to stand up and say something, anything, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Greg had already claimed it as his own, and if I tried to call him out, I'd just look like some whiny kid throwing a tantrum. So I sat there, silent, watching him bask in the glory of something he had absolutely nothing to do with. The worst part? Sarah made a point to congratulate him afterward, right in front of everyone, and hinted that there might be a bonus in it for him. A bonus. I mean, here I am, struggling to pay rent, living off ramen, taking a 2-hour commute because I can't afford a damn car, and this guy might get a fat check for doing nothing. It made me sick. After the meeting, he had the nerve to come up to me and say, "Nice work on that project, kid. Just remember to keep your head down and things will work out for you." Keep my head down? The guy practically stole from me, and he's telling me to keep my head down? I had to bite my tongue so hard I thought I'd draw blood. I walked back to my desk, and on the way there, I overheard Jason bragging to someone about how he'd worked on the project too, which was complete bull. I didn't even see him look at the code once. It was like everyone around here just decided they were going to claim a piece of my work for themselves. Back at my desk, I sat down and just stared at my screen. I felt completely empty. I'd poured everything I had into that project, hoping it might be my ticket out of this mess, maybe even get me some real recognition. But instead, I got nothing. Worse than nothing. I got robbed and then got told to keep my head down like I was some kind of pawn. Since then, I've been dragging myself through each day, trying not to let it get to me. But it's tough. I mean, what's the point in trying if everything you do is just going to get stolen by some washed up office hack? I'm still applying to other jobs, trying to get out of here, but who knows if anything will come through. One thing's for sure, though. I'm done trying to impress these people. They don't deserve it. The whole place is rotten, top to bottom, and it's clear now that no matter what I do, someone else is just going to take it and run. So, yeah, maybe I'll keep my head down for now, but I'm not going to be their workhorse forever. I just got to find my way out. Update. A few weeks after Greg took credit for my project, I found myself demoted to customer support. That's right, customer questions and tech support. They didn't call it a demotion, of course. Sarah framed it as an opportunity to get closer to our users, but I knew what it was. It was a kick in the gut. I was already barely surviving on the salary I had, and now they were shoving me into a role with even less visibility and potential for advancement. At first, I hated it. I mean, after all the crap I'd put up with, now I was supposed to sit around answering emails and troubleshooting issues for people who couldn't even figure out how to restart their systems. It felt like a massive step back. But over time, something surprising happened. I realized I was actually pretty damn good at it. I understood the tech better than most, and customers were actually grateful when I managed to help them out. More importantly, some of the clients I ended up working with were big names, and they were impressed with how I handled things. I don't know why I'd been worried. Dealing with the customers turned out to be way better than dealing with Greg and Sarah. Plus, I actually got to talk to people outside the company who weren't total jerks, which was a nice change of pace. After a few months, I started getting assigned to more significant clients, the ones who actually needed in-person assistance. I figured it was because I was handling the tough cases better than anyone else in the department. One of these clients, let's call him Mr. Ford, had a reputation for being hard to please. He was some big shot exec for a healthcare company, and I got sent over to his office to help with an issue that'd been plaguing his team for weeks. I went in, did my thing, and fixed the problem faster than anyone expected. Mr. Ford was impressed. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy, very direct. But after I got everything sorted out, he looked at me and said, "You know, if you ever get tired over there, you should give me a call." He said it like a joke, but I knew there was a serious offer behind it. I jumped at the chance, telling him I'd love to explore other opportunities. He raised an eyebrow, and we exchanged contact information. That was the first moment in months where I actually felt hopeful. I didn't say a word to anyone at work. I knew better by now. Greg and Sarah would find some way to ruin it if they got wind of it, so I kept my mouth shut and my head down, just biding my time. Not long after that, another big client project landed on our desk. And guess who was in charge? Greg. He assigned me to work on it, clearly expecting me to handle the bulk of the work. No surprise there. This time, though, I saw an opportunity. I threw myself into it, putting in all the extra hours necessary to create something incredible. It wasn't easy, but I pushed through, hoping this would be my ticket out. I managed to get the core of the program done, but there were still a few bugs to iron out. I went to Greg, showed him the progress I'd made, and told him, hey, it's almost there. Just needs a little more time, and it'll be solid. He dude barely glanced at it, though, shrugged, and said, looks fine. We're sending it out. I was so tired at the time, I honestly didn't even consider the possibility that he'd actually send it out without double checking it. So I kind of absent-mindedly protested, tried to tell him it wasn't ready, but he just waved me off and walked away. A day later, I found out they'd actually sent it to the client without my knowledge. I was furious and in disbelief, but I knew it wouldn't help to confront Greg about it now. I could only brace myself for the fallout. And the fallout came fast. The program was a complete disaster. The client tried running it, and it failed almost immediately. Major features were broken, and the bugs I'd been working on made it practically unusable. Of course, the client was furious. Within hours, they'd called Sarah demanding a meeting to figure out what the hell had happened. In the meeting, Greg stood up, practically beaming, like he thought this was some kind of victory lap. I was dumbfounded. Was he actually about to take responsibility for this? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, right when I thought he might actually own up to his screw-up, he spun around and tried to pin it on me. He pointed in my direction, saying, I assigned this to our junior developer here. He assured me it was ready. Before he could finish, the client was livid. He started tearing into Greg, calling him incompetent and unprofessional. I could see Sarah's face going pale, and I knew this was my chance. I spoke up, keeping my tone calm, but with a clarity I hadn't felt in ages. Actually, I informed Greg that it wasn't ready, but he insisted on sending it anyway. I had asked for a bit more time to resolve the final bugs. The client turned his glare toward me, then back to Greg. The room was silent. Greg started sputtering, trying to talk his way out of it, but it was clear the damage was done. I guess the damage was pretty bad, because even Sarah's boss was at the meeting. He'd been quiet up until now, but looked like he was about to explode. He slammed his fist on the table and said, I've had enough of this. If this is how you're managing projects, we have a serious problem, Greg. I could see the panic in Greg's eyes as he realized the tables had turned. I'd never felt more vindicated. I took a deep breath, stood up, and said, you know what? I think this is a good time for me to say that I'm done here. I quit. They heard me, but I think everyone was more focused on the situation at hand, so there was barely any reaction. In hindsight, I think I could have done it at a better time, but overall, the meeting was a total mess. I could feel the tension in the air as the client tore into Greg, ripping him apart for sending out an unfinished project. Sarah stood there looking like she was watching her career go up in flames, and I just sat back, letting it all unfold. Then Greg turned to me, desperation written all over his face. You need to fix this. Now. I just stared at him for a second, trying not to laugh. I'd been waiting for this moment for months. I took a slow breath and said straight to his face, no, Greg, I don't think so. I already quit. I think finally letting the words flow, I felt way more confident than before. The look on his face was priceless. He froze, mouth open, like he couldn't process what I just said. I guess it hadn't occurred to him that I'd finally had enough of his crap. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, clearly thrown off by the turn of events, and then the client, still standing there with a pissed-off expression, turned to Sarah with a puzzled look. So wait, he said. Greg is supposed to be the head manager, right? Then why the hell is he demanding that a junior kid, who already quit by the way, clean up his mess? What kind of operation are you running here? I swear, the color drained from Greg's face. He looked like he was about to pass out, but he tried to stammer something in response. I wasn't interested in hearing any more of his pathetic excuses. I just wanted to get out of that nightmare for good. I stood up, grabbed my stuff, and without another glance, walked out of that miserable meeting room. I could hear them scrambling behind me, probably trying to figure out how they were going to salvage the mess Greg had made. Not my problem anymore. I was finally free from the bullshit, and damn, did it feel good. Probably final update. After I walked out of that office, I felt a strange mix of exhilaration and anxiety. Sure, I'd finally quit and told Greg off, but I'd also just left behind my only source of income. The reality of it all started to hit me as I made my way home. I'd been so caught up in finally escaping that I hadn't even stopped to think about what would come next. I had Mr. Ford's contact information, and I knew there was an opportunity there, but nothing was set in stone yet. That night, I emailed Mr. Ford, reminding him of his offer to talk if I was ever interested in a change. I tried to sound calm and collected, but honestly, I was nervous as hell. I'd put everything on the line by quitting, and if this didn't work out, I didn't know what I'd do. I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying the day in my head and wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. The next morning, I woke up to a reply from Mr. Ford. He was short and to the point, but he wanted to meet. He suggested we get together at a coffee shop near his office to talk things over. My heart was racing as I got ready. I couldn't afford to screw this up. When I met him, Mr. Ford was surprisingly friendly, given how intense he'd been in our previous meetings. He cut right to the chase, asking me about my skills, what I was looking for, and why I'd left the company. I gave him the rundown, minus the profanity and the more personal stuff, and he nodded, taking it all in. After what felt like an eternity, he smiled and said, "I think we can make something work." It wasn't long before he offered me a role. It was a smaller company, but the pay was better, and most importantly, it was a place where I'd have room to grow. The position was more technical than my last one, and he was clear that it would be challenging, but I was up for it. I accepted the offer on the spot, feeling like I'd finally caught a break. As I settled into my new job, I felt a kind of satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. The work was tough, but it was rewarding, and the people around me actually knew what they were doing. No more Gregs, no more Sarahs, no more shady corporate nonsense. I could finally see a future where I wasn't just grinding my life away for nothing. I can even afford food now, and saving up for a car, which is a huge plus. A few weeks later, I heard through, though, some of the past coworkers that Greg had been demoted after the fiasco with the client. Turns out they'd traced the entire disaster back to him, and Sarah wasn't exactly eager to go down with him. She threw him under the bus, probably hoping to save her own skin. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard it. It was exactly the kind of poetic justice that Greg deserved. Looking back, walking out of that meeting was the best thing I could have done. It was a risk, sure, but it finally got me out of that hellhole and into something better. It felt damn good to finally be free, doing work that mattered, and surrounded by people who actually valued my skills. Some of you mentioned you want to know the company to avoid it, but I think I'd like to stay anonymous.
My homophobic dog saw me getting bottomed by my boyfriend and now won't listen to me anymore. My original post got so popular that I even became a meme. And I mean, a meme. I guess that's my claim to fame now, right? I got tagged in all these homophobic dog TikToks. And honestly, it's wild how something like that just takes off. And yes, for all you nosy queens out there, my Akita still acts like I betrayed him, but now it's just kind of awkward tension between us, like we're exes who ran into each other at brunch. Anyway, I promised I'd go more into detail about the whole thing, so buckle up. First off, let me just say that, yeah, I know how this looks. It's giving messy, it's giving chaos. But you gotta understand something about me. I didn't always used to be this flamboyant, well, not in the same way. Like, I was always gay as Christmas, don't get me wrong, but when I was younger, I tried to be one of those mask gays. The ones who like football and talk about cars like they're not just metal boxes that take you to Target. So when I got my first boyfriend at 19, I thought I had to be the man in the relationship, which, spoiler alert, didn't work out. It was this guy, Brian, who was all about the gym and protein shakes, and I convinced myself I was into it. Picture me trying to spot a dude who deadlifts more than my entire wardrobe. Tragic. But I didn't want to disappoint him because back then I still had this idea that I needed to fit into some straight guy mold. And for a while, I played the part, deepened my voice, pretended to enjoy Call of Duty, which, let's be real, is just an anxiety simulator, and tried to be the chill boyfriend. But that facade cracked real quick when we went to Pride together. It was my first time, and honey, let me tell you, that was when I felt alive. I remember walking past all these queens in glitter, heels, and wigs that could double as life rafts, and I thought, this is what I'm missing. There was this guy on the float who was twirling batons and blowing kisses to the crowd, and I turned to Brian like, I want to do that. And he looked at me like I'd just suggested getting matching Crocs. Needless to say, the relationship didn't last long after that. Fast forward a few years, and I finally started embracing who I am. My voice got a little higher, my wardrobe got a little more colorful, and my confidence skyrocketed. But here's the thing. I still get insecure about my voice sometimes. Like, you know how it's just slightly higher pitched than you'd expect? Well, sometimes when I get excited or stressed, it hits this weird tone, and I swear, people think I'm doing it on purpose. So I'll be out on a date or something, and the guy will ask me to pass the salt. And I'll be like, oh sure, babe, in this squeaky chipmunk voice that sounds more like a Pokemon than a person. It's fine until I notice them chuckling under their breath. Like, I know I sound like a gay Disney sidekick, okay? You don't have to remind me. But anyway, back to the dog situation, because I know that's why y'all are really here. After the whole Akita walking in during a very intimate moment incident, things have just been off between us. And I've tried everything to fix it. I'm talking treats, long walks, talking to him in that high-pitched baby voice I use when I'm trying to make him love me again. And yes, he gives me the side-eye for it. Nothing works. It's like I got caught cheating on him with that guy, except the guy was a random dude from Grindr, and the cheating was, well, let's not rehash that part. And okay, I know some of y'all are probably still side-eyeing me for leaving the door open during a hookup. Trust me, I've learned my lesson. You wouldn't believe how many people have slid into my DMs with their hookup horror stories after that post blew up. There was one guy who told me his dog literally jumped on the bed while he was busy and started licking his back. Imagine trying to finish when you feel a wet nose on your spine. If that doesn't kill the mood, nothing will. Oh, speaking of awkward moments, let me tell you about this one time I was dating this guy. Let's call him Jared, because why not? He was a bit older, and I was super into him because he had that whole daddy vibe going on, you know? So we're at his place one night, getting cozy, and he's got this giant Maine Coon cat. I'm talking a massive furball that looks like it could take down a raccoon in a fight. Anyway, things are getting heated, and suddenly the cat leaps onto the bed, stares at me like I'm intruding in his house, and just sits there. Like he's judging us, and Jared's just like, he does that sometimes. I couldn't even concentrate. Like, how am I supposed to be sexy when a literal lion is watching me? It's the same energy my Akita has now, this judgmental, I'm better than you look. It's like, my dog doesn't respect me anymore. I mean, I get it. He saw me in my most vulnerable legs in the air state, and now he's like, this is the man who feeds me. But it's not like I can just explain to him, hey buddy, that's what happens in a healthy adult relationship. Or, you know, a less than healthy Grindr meetup. But whatever. Honestly, the whole thing has made me reflect on how much my relationships have revolved around me trying to control how I'm perceived, whether it's by people or, apparently, pets. I've had my share of rough hookups and embarrassing moments, like this one time. I was on a date with this guy who was super cute, and I accidentally called him by the name of my ex halfway through dinner. Yeah, you read that right. I was sipping my wine, feeling myself, and I just casually said, so, Brian, what do you do for work again? And he looks at me like I've just dropped a truth bomb on him. His name wasn't Brian. The worst part is that he didn't correct me right away. He just smiled and said, I'm an architect, which, by the way, was also what Brian did. So now I'm like, oh, great, I'm dating the same person again, just in a different body. We didn't have a second date. As much as I love being out there and living my truth, moments like that make me want to crawl into a hole and die. But I guess that's life, right? You live, you learn, and sometimes your dog witnesses something he'll never unsee, and now you're stuck in a weird silent standoff with him for the rest of your days. Anyway, to all the people who keep DMing me asking if I've fixed my relationship with my Akita, no, not yet, but I'm trying. Maybe I'll take him to therapy or something. Do they have dog therapists? Or maybe I just need to move on. Let him live his life and accept that I've been dethroned as the alpha of the house. I don't know. But if any of y'all have suggestions on how to fix a broken relationship with a dog, I'm all ears. And who knows, maybe I'll post another update if things get better. Or worse. Update 2. Alright y'all, so here we are with an update that no one asked for, but everyone is secretly dying to read. First off, thank you to the many people who slid into my DMs with unsolicited dog training advice, and a few unsolicited pics that weren't about dogs at all, but I digress. Turns out this whole my dog is homophobic thing has spiraled into a saga that I didn't even know was possible. I'm one messy grinder hookup away from starting a reality TV show at this point. So there's been an incident, or more accurately, several incidents. My precious Akita, who, might I remind you, used to be my ride or die, has now lashed out at me a couple of times, and it's honestly starting to freak me out. Like, I'll go to pet him, and he'll give me this side-eye of pure disgust before growling, and I'm like, "Sir, I pay your rent and buy your food. The least you could do is not act like I'm a trespasser in my own home." The other day, I was on the couch, watching reruns of RuPaul's Drag Race, as one does, and I reached over to scratch behind his ear like I used to do, and he straight up nipped at me. Now listen, I've never claimed to be a dog whisperer, but I know enough to tell when someone is not feeling me, and honey, he is not feeling me, like he's never bitten me before. Ever. And here I am, sitting on my couch, clutching my pearls, while my own dog gives me this energy. I'm not even mad. I'm hurt. I'm spiraling. Why does my dog hate me is now my official search history. And get this, remember the guy from the original hookup? The one who witnessed the whole thing and kindly pointed out that my dog was watching us like a live studio audience? Well, because I'm a masochist, I thought it'd be a good idea to invite him back over. You know, for science. I wanted to see if maybe the dog would behave differently. Spoiler alert, he did. This dog, my dog, who literally snarls at me for existing, treated the guy like a king. I'm talking tail wagging, happy noises, licking his hand. I swear, it was like watching your ex flirt with someone hotter than you at a party. I just stood there, mouth agape, feeling like the third wheel in my own damn house. Meanwhile, this guy is petting my dog like he's some kind of dog whisperer, and I'm standing in the corner like, what the actual f***? It made me feel like absolute garbage, not gonna lie. I started questioning my entire existence. Like, is this my karma? Did I do something in a past life to deserve this? Why is my dog choosing some random grinder dude over me? So naturally, I did what any emotionally stable person would do. I started considering ways to become more masculine. Maybe if I acted more alpha, the dog would respect me again, right? I even looked up some articles on how to become more masculine. Let me tell you, it was a wild ride. Apparently, I was supposed to start lifting weights, grow a beard, which, not happening, and stop using emojis. So I gave up pretty fast because, let's face it, I'm not about to give up sparkly emojis just to impress a dog. But for a hot minute, I actually contemplated joining a CrossFit gym. The things we do for love, am I right? Anyway, in my desperation, I decided to hire a professional dog trainer. I found this guy online, and he looked legit, good reviews, lots of dog pics, the whole deal. So I set up an appointment, and when he shows up, oh my god. This man is hotter than July in a sauna. He's like if Chris Hemsworth decided to ditch the hammer and become a dog trainer instead. And he's nice too. Like, way too nice for someone who's about to witness the mess that is my life. I'm trying to play it cool, but let's be real. I'm sweating bullets. My dog, of course, is perfectly well behaved the entire time. No growling, no sass, just sitting there like a good boy while this guy is talking to me about positive reinforcement and pack dynamics or whatever. I was listening. Kind of. Now this is where it gets messy, like it wasn't already. We're halfway through the session, and there's this tension. Like I'm trying to focus on the fact that I paid this man to train my dog, but instead, we end up standing a little too close to each other. And one thing leads to another, and, well, Let's just say my dog wasn't the only one getting attention that day. Yeah, I hooked up with the dog trainer. I know, I know. This was supposed to be about fixing my relationship with my Akita, but I'm only human, okay? And the man had biceps the size of my head. Who am I to resist? But of course, because my life is a never-ending sitcom, this little indiscretion only made things worse with the dog. I kid you not. After the hookup, my Akita has doubled down on his bad behavior. It's like he knows. He knows. The growling has gotten more aggressive, and now when I walk into the room, he immediately gets up and leaves like he's been personally offended by my existence. I'm not saying my dog is holding a grudge, but I've seen ex-boyfriends who are more forgiving than this. So, here I am, back at square one. I've got a hot dog trainer who probably thinks I'm a hot mess, accurate, a dog who hates me, and a newfound insecurity about my masculinity. Oh, and I'm still considering that CrossFit gym, because why not? Maybe if I start bench pressing, my dog will finally respect me again. If any of you have any more advice, besides, not hooking up with the dog trainer, I'm all ears. And pause, because at this rate, I'm about one more doggy side-eye away from moving out and letting him keep the apartment. Stay tuned for Update 3, where I'll probably become a dog myself in a desperate attempt to get him to like me again. Update 3. Alright, so I'm back with another update because clearly my life isn't chaotic enough, and you all deserve to know what kind of ridiculousness I've stumbled into this time. After the whole hooking up with the dog trainer incident, yes, I still cringe when I say it, I decided to take a step that I thought might actually help me instead of, making things worse. That's right, I started therapy. Now, hold your applause. The reason I went to therapy wasn't to dig deep into my emotional trauma or anything noble like that. Nope. I went because I genuinely thought, hey, maybe therapy can help me figure out how to be more masculine. Because clearly that's where my life has led me, going to therapy to be more of a man for my dog. I found a therapist online who specializes in self-empowerment or something, and she seemed legit. So I thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. I roll up to her office. Well, actually, I walked in because I live for dramatic entrances, and I'm expecting this serious, no-nonsense therapist who's going to help me get my life together. What I got was... well, not exactly that. First off, my therapist, let's call her Dr. G, is a woman. Which for me is great, because there's no chance of me getting distracted by biceps or a jawline that could cut glass. But here's the thing. Dr. G, she's a little too into my stories. Session 1 starts, and I'm all ready to talk about masculinity and, how to assert dominance or whatever. So I sit down, cross my legs, very masculine, obviously, and I'm like, so, I think my dog hates me because I'm not masculine enough. Dr. G doesn't even blink. She just nods and goes, interesting. Let's talk about that. What follows next was not a deep dive into how I can reclaim my alpha energy. Nope. Instead, I start talking about the dog trainer hookup. Because, naturally, when someone asks, why do you feel like you lack masculinity, my brain immediately goes, tell her about the hot guy with the biceps. So there I am spilling the whole story about how I hired this dog trainer, how things escalated, how my Akita is now even more angry with me, basically recounting the last 2 updates in vivid detail. And Dr. G, she's eating it up. I mean, I'm not saying she was visibly excited or anything, that would be weird, but she had this look on her face that said, girl, give me more. I'm talking, she's nodding along, smiling, occasionally sipping her tea like we're at brunch, and I'm filling her in on the latest hookup gossip. I've never seen a therapist so engaged. At one point I said something like, and then obviously I hooked up with him, and she just goes, oh, I see, with this twinkle in her eye like I'd just given her the plot twist of a lifetime. So naturally, the whole masculinity thing takes a back seat, because now I'm just using my therapy sessions to talk about my sex life. By session 3, I'm like, so I was on this date with a guy who ordered salad and called it dinner. Red flag, right? And she just laughs and says, tell me more. At this point, I'm convinced that Dr. G is living vicariously through me, which, to be fair, is probably the most entertaining therapy gig she's had in a while. I mean, imagine getting paid to listen to my dating disasters and dog drama. I'm basically providing free entertainment. One time, I tried to steer the conversation back to my original reason for being there. I said something like, but really, I think my issue is that I'm just too, I don't know, soft? Maybe I need to be tougher, more masculine. And she looks at me and goes, do you really want that, though? You seem to enjoy being who you are. And I'm like, damn, Dr. G, you're right. I do enjoy being who I am. But also, my dog still hates me. So what now? Of course, after that little epiphany, I go right back to talking time I ran into two exes at the same club and had to pretend like I was unbothered while they did shots together at the bar. I was very much bothered, in case anyone's wondering. There were tears. But I digress. So yeah, therapy hasn't exactly turned me into a lumberjack or anything. I'm still out here with my slightly higher pitched voice, my questionable life choices, and a dog who looks at me like I'm an embarrassment to all of dogkind. But Dr. G is living for it, so at least someone's happy. The best part? I'm paying for this. I'm literally paying for someone to sip tea while I talk about my Grindr escapades and dog drama. I guess you could say it's therapeutic? Like, it feels good to get everything off my chest, but I'm starting to think I need a therapist for my therapy sessions. The only thing that's come out of this so far is Dr. G telling me, you don't need to be more masculine. You just need to be confident in who you are. Which, like, thanks, girl, but that doesn't help me when my dog is still acting like I'm a guest in his house. I've tried everything at this point. Positive affirmations, treats, apologizing for being a bottom. Nothing works. So now I'm thinking maybe Dr. G needs to meet my dog. Like, if anyone can charm him, it's her, right? Maybe if she hears his side of the story, we can finally come to some sort of resolution. Honestly, at this point, it feels like I'm in couples therapy with my dog. Stay tuned for update 4, where I'll probably end up in a therapy session with my Akita, trying to work through our trust issues. Because apparently, this is my life now. Update 4. Well, here we are again, folks. I'm back with another update because apparently my life is just a never-ending sitcom at this point. First of all, let me address something right off the bat. Therapy is still going strong, and Dr. G? She's getting real friendly. Like at first I was convinced she was just living for the drama and tea I was serving her on a silver platter, but I've got to admit I may have misjudged her. Turns out she's actually helping me. Who knew? I mean, yeah, she still gives me that look like I'm the star of her favorite reality show, but every once in a while, she drops some real gems of wisdom. I'll be in the middle of talking about, like, that time I accidentally texted a nude to the wrong guy, and she'll just nod and go, and how did that make you feel? And suddenly, I'm spiraling into a whole therapy breakthrough. One time, I was mid-rant about my Akita's total betrayal, still unresolved, by the way, and she just casually drops, you know, maybe your dog sees you as submissive because you're always a bottom. Hold up. I'm sitting there, stunned, like, did my therapist just suggest I become a top? And she says it with this calm, matter-of-fact tone like she's giving me advice on meal prepping. She's just like, maybe if you tried to switch roles in your relationships, your dog might see you in a more assertive light. And I swear I could hear the collective gasp of every gay man within a 5-mile radius. Like, girl, we're just gonna gloss over the fact that I'm not exactly known for my top energy? But hey, she was serious. And you know what? So was I. So I thought, why not? Let's give this whole top thing a try. I'm open-minded, and at this point I'll try anything to win back my dog's respect. I went on Grindr, obviously, found a guy who was into it, and we set up a date. This was my time to shine, or, you know, at least try to shine. Fast forward to the big night, and let me tell you, it was a disaster. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, it's not in my nature to be the dominant one in the bedroom. The whole time, I was overthinking everything. Should I, like, flex? Is this where I growl? Do I have to give commands? I felt like I was doing an audition for a role I didn't even want. And to top it all off, pun intended, my dog didn't even show up to watch. Yup. The one time I'm trying to assert my dominance and Mr. I watch everything you do is nowhere to be found. It's like he knew. He knew I was about to embarrass myself. He knew I was about to embarrass myself. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit this one out. You're on your own, sis. Honestly, it was probably for the best because it was the most awkward 30 minutes of my life. Afterward, I had this moment of, wow, maybe Dr. Seth G wasn't onto something after all. But then I realized no, the advice was solid. The execution? That's on me. Being a top is not for everyone, okay? It requires a certain finesse, and I am just not that person. I'm more of a sprawl out on the bed like a starfish and let the magic happen type, you know? The best part is when I went back to therapy the next week, and Dr. G was all smiles, ready for the tea. I walked in, and she just had that look on her face like, "So, how did it go?" And I gave her the play-by-play, because that's what we do now, apparently. And she laughed so hard I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. She actually said, "Well, maybe topping just isn't for you, but at least you tried." Thanks, Dr. G. I mean, she's not wrong. But also, I feel like I need to put that on a motivational poster. At least you tried. So therapy has turned into this weird mix of actual helpful advice and me providing free entertainment. It's like she's a therapist/audience for my chaotic gay life, and I'm honestly here for it. She's even started giving me advice on dating, like, maybe don't sleep with every guy who gives you a compliment, which, okay, fair point, but where's the fun in that? Anyway, I'm still not any more masculine than I was when I started, and my dog still looks at me like I'm a walking disappointment. But at least now I've got Dr. G in my corner. And she's convinced I'm going to have a breakthrough soon. Or maybe she's just enjoying the show. Either way, I'm paying for this, and she's the only one who doesn't seem to be judging me, unlike my dog. Stay tuned for Update 5, where I'll probably try some other ridiculous method to become more masculine, only to fail miserably and laugh about it later. Maybe I'll start wearing flannel. That's pretty manly, right?
I asked my best friend to get me pregnant, and he agreed. However, now he suddenly feels distant and cold for some reason. I always imagined that my life would follow a more traditional timeline: graduate, find my soulmate, marry, and then start a family. But as I neared my 32nd birthday, I found myself in a different place: single, ambitious, and yearning for something more profound than my career as a marketing manager. The ticking of my biological clock grew louder, urging me to take control of my future. And as I stared out at the bustling streets of my city from my cozy one-bedroom apartment, an idea began to blossom. I had always wondered if I could raise a child on my own. My parents were supportive, and I had a good job. Sure, my apartment was small, but I longed to fill it with the laughter of a child. The problem was finding someone who shared my vision without the complications of romance that traditionally accompanied parenting. Then I thought of Scott. Scott and I had been friends since our university days, a bond that had grown through countless late-night study sessions, shared meals, and adventures. He was everything I admired: athletic, intelligent, and kind. We had a camaraderie that was rare, and I cherished our friendship deeply. But could I take this leap with him? After weeks of contemplation, I finally decided to propose my unconventional plan. I invited Scott over for dinner one evening, my heart racing with excitement and anxiety as I prepared the meal. I tried to focus more on the pasta and wine than the important conversation about to unfold. "Scott, can we talk about something important?" I asked, my voice steady despite the butterflies fluttering in my stomach. He looked up, curiosity etched on his face. "Sure, what's up?" I've been thinking about having a baby. I want to be a mother," I blurted out, my heart pounding. "And I was hoping you would consider being the father." For a moment, silence filled the room as he processed my words. Then his expression shifted from shock to intrigue. "You mean like a co-parenting situation?" "Yes, exactly. I want to raise a child, but I don't want a traditional relationship. I trust you completely, and I know you'd be an amazing dad." We spent hours discussing the logistics of our arrangement. He hesitated, but ultimately agreed, revealing that he too had considered fatherhood, but shied away from traditional relationships. I felt a glimmer of hope. We might be able to make this work. As our arrangement unfolded, it began shaping our dynamic in unexpected ways. We shared an innocent kiss one night, and suddenly things felt electric. I found myself surprised at how naturally the physical chemistry developed between us. I'd never seen Scott in that light, but there was something intoxicating about it. Each time we kissed, my resolve wavered, and I feared where this might lead. Weeks passed, and I grappled with the consequences of our physical closeness. Whenever we cuddled or shared laughter, I felt my heart race, a dangerous emotion blossoming. I tried to push these feelings aside, but every interaction strengthened the connection I felt for him. What if I fell in love with Scott? The very thought terrified me. Our friendship meant too much to risk. At the same time, my desire for a child grew, and the thought of others made me uneasy. I turned to him as my anchor, but found myself caught in a web of complicating emotions. I confided in my mother, Elena, who always hoped I would find true love. I could tell she would disapprove of my arrangement with Scott, viewing it as a deviation from her dreams for me. Despite my mother's potential disappointment, I felt empowered to forge my own path. Then, one fateful evening, after another exhilarating kiss, I realized I had to confront the reality of my situation. I took a deep breath and told Scott, "I think I'm falling for you. But that complicates everything, doesn't it?" He looked taken aback, visibly panicking. "Oh, Sophia, I value our friendship so much. I don't want to lose you, but I'm not ready for a romantic relationship." His words stung. Although I appreciated his honesty, part of me felt threatened. What would happen to our plans if we couldn't keep our feelings in check? I realized I had to keep searching within myself for clarity. It wasn't long before I discovered I was pregnant. When I found out, fear eclipsed my initial joy. I had envisioned this moment differently, a celebration, a partnership. But here I was, uncertain of how Scott would react. With my heart racing, I invited him to my apartment, the weight of my news heavy on my shoulders. "Scott, I'm pregnant," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His eyes widened in shock, and I saw a whirlwind of emotions crashing over him. "Are you serious? This changes everything." Silence enveloped us as the weight of implications settled in the room. Would he still want to fulfill our agreement, but in a different capacity? Could I count on him to be there for our child, even if we weren't a couple? As days turned into weeks, I realized I needed to be honest with myself and with Scott. I processed my feelings while preparing for motherhood and the challenges it would bring. I confided in Mark, Scott's best friend, hoping he would shed light on my emotional quandary. "You're playing with fire, Sophia," he remarked over coffee one day. "You're falling for him, and you know it. What if this blows up in your face?" His remarks resonated, yet I couldn't ignore my connection with Scott. He supported me, and as my pregnancy progressed, our bond deepened into something beautiful. Then one evening changed everything. After I shared my worries and fears, Scott opened up saying, "Sophia, I care about you. Being a dad, I want that. But our friendship is so important, I don't want to ruin it. Do you think we can find a way to navigate this? Because I can't ignore how I feel," I confessed, the vulnerability hanging between us. For the first time, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. "You mean so much to me too, Sophia. I guess we can figure out what this means for us, together." Our conversations shifted, and the path forward unfolded before us like uncharted territory. Could we build a future together while remaining grounded in our friendship? Or would the emotional weight inevitably tear us apart? As I held his hand, I dared to dream of a family not bound by convention, but woven with love, friendship, and understanding. Suddenly, the fear of losing what we had turned into hope, a potential love story redefining both our lives and the future of our child. This was only the beginning of our journey together. A journey that was not just about having a child, but discovering a love that we had never anticipated. When I was a child, I had a single Barbie doll, a cherished gift from my grandmother. Her long, flowing hair shone like golden silk, cascading down her back. Barbie became more than just a toy. She was a companion, a confidant, and the keeper of my childhood secrets. I dressed her in different outfits, taking her on imaginary adventures in the back garden where she would explore the realms of my imagination. I loved her dearly, and I guarded her with my life. I remember the day, just before my final year of high school, when my friend, Elena, came to my house. She brought along her younger sister, Sasha, who was bright-eyed and filled with youthful curiosity, despite the shadows of hardship that loomed over her family. The reality was that they had been struggling. Their family of 10 lived a modest life, often just scraping by. I admired Alina's resilience. She seemed to carry the weight of her family's struggles on her shoulders, always looking after her siblings with unwavering love. That day, as we laughed and shared stories, I noticed Sasha quietly looking at my Barbie, who sat on my bookshelf. Her eyes sparkled as she reached out, longing to touch her. I could see the envy mixed with awe dance across her cherubic face. Just for a fleeting moment, I imagined what it would be like to have a Barbie of her own, a beautiful doll that she could love and cherish, just as I had. Suddenly, a pang of empathy struck me. Here I was, a girl on the brink of adulthood, preparing to leave behind my childhood. I had been planning to take Barbie with me to university, but in that instant, I wanted to offer Sasha something special. So before I could overthink it, I took a deep breath and said, "You can have her, Sasha. Just promise to take good care of her." The joy that erupted in Sasha's small face was a sight I would never forget. "Really? Thank you," she squealed, clutching the doll close to her heart. I watched as she cradled the doll, looking at her as if she had just received a treasure. I felt a mix of sadness and happiness. My beloved Barbie would have a new home, where she would be cherished once more. I whispered, "Make sure you take care of her," as I handed her the doll. Fast forward 5 years. By then, I was in university, navigating the challenges of adulthood and missing the simplicity of childhood. One day, I received a call from Elena, and her voice was heavy with something unspoken. "Can we meet? I have something to tell you," she asked. I sensed the gravity behind her words and agreed to meet at our favorite cafe. As I sat across from her, the weight of her demeanor unnerved me. She finally spoke up. "Remember that Barbie you gave to Sasha?" My heart raced, fear creeping in. "Yes, of course. Why?" Elena looked down at her hands, tears pooling in her eyes. "When we got home that day, our mom saw it and she was very upset. She said it was a disgrace, as she put it. She took Sasha's new doll and tossed it in the trash." A wave of disbelief crashed over me. "What do you mean? She threw her away?" I could hardly process the words coming from her mouth. "Yes," Elena said, her voice trembling. "She said that it was inappropriate for Sasha to have such a doll, especially given our family's situation. She didn't understand why we'd accept something lavish from someone else. Mom didn't even give us a chance to return it to you." I felt the ground beneath me crumble as her words sank in. My beloved Barbie, my childhood companion, was gone. "But why didn't you tell me? You could have just returned her to me," I cried, my voice breaking. "I wanted to, but Mom wouldn't hear of it. After that, I looked through the trash, hoping to find her, but someone else must have taken it." "I'm so sorry," Elena added, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I tried to find her." A heart-wrenching sorrow enveloped me. I couldn't shake the image of my Barbie tossed aside like yesterday's refuse. I tried to console myself, thinking of her in the hands of another child, perhaps giving them joy, but it didn't lessen the ache in my heart. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself haunted by memories of that very doll. The comfort she once provided, now replaced by an unbearable sense of loss. I could still picture Barbie sitting on my shelf, her bright smile comforting me through lonely nights and teenage insecurities. Now, she was just a faded memory, an echo of innocence lost. The realization hit me. A small act of kindness in giving her away had spiraled into a tragedy I never anticipated. I allowed myself to grieve in silence, the weight of it all feeling heavier than I had anticipated. Every time I closed my eyes, I would see Sasha's glowing face and hear her laughter at the joy my Barbie brought her, only to be met with the harsh reality of her loss. The thought of my cherished doll being treated with such disrespect shattered my heart. Could no one see the love I had poured into that simple plastic figure? In time, I learned that love could be fragile, and that sometimes our most cherished memories can be lost in the hands of others. It became a painful lesson on generosity, the bittersweet realization that giving something precious can sometimes lead to unexpected loss. Somewhere in my heart, I hoped my Barbie found a new home, one that would recognize her value, even if it wasn't mine. But I couldn't help but feel an empty space, an aching nostalgia for a piece of my childhood, a piece that would never be returned to me. And so, I carry the memory of my Barbie and the lessons she taught me, still hoping to honor the spirit of love I felt for her through acts of kindness, even if they come with the risk of heartache. Oh my God, girls, you won't believe what happened to me. Honestly, I still can't wrap my head around it, and it feels like I'm living in some awful movie. But I guess I'll just start from the beginning because you need to hear the whole thing. So, you know how Alex and I were perfect, right? At least that's what I thought. Ugh, I was so stupid. He had this whole thing about getting a motorcycle. I swear, the way he talked about it, he'd go on and on about how we'd ride together, the kids in a sidecar, like we were in some happy, carefree movie. And I fell for it. Hard. He looked at me with those big, dreamy eyes like I was the center of his universe, and I thought, this is it. This is the guy. My king. Can you believe it? My king. More like a con artist. I'm so mad at myself because deep down I knew something was off. Like, who gets a motorcycle when they can't even afford to pay for it? But of course, Alex worked his charm. He had this whole fantasy laid out, and I was so desperate to believe in it. He made me feel like we were building this beautiful life together. And I, like an idiot, actually thought helping him get that stupid bike would bring us closer. So what did I do? Yeah, I took out a freaking loan. A loan. On my name, with 2 kids to feed, in a foreign country, and no one to help me if things go wrong. You know that little voice that says, don't do it? I ignored her because I thought love was stronger. And now look at me. The moment he got the bike, everything changed. Everything. Suddenly, he had no time for me, for us. It was all about him and his precious motorcycle. He wouldn't even look me in the eye anymore. And when I asked him about the loan, I'll take care of it later, babe. Yeah, later, my ass. The worst part? He's not paying a single cent back. Not 1 cent. So guess who's stuck with all of it? Me. Me, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, trying to hold everything together for my kids. While he's out there, probably cruising around without a care in the world. I can't even describe how that feels. The betrayal, the anger at myself for falling for it. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could ask his mom for help. She's got money, right? But oh my God, the shame. I couldn't do it. I can't bring myself to beg the family of the guy who screwed me over. How humiliating would that be? Every single day now feels like a battle. I'm exhausted, running around, doing everything I can to stay afloat, while he's probably living his best life. It's not fair. It's just not fair. I look at my kids, and my heart breaks. I wanted to give them a better life, and now I feel like I'm drowning in this mess I created. All because I was stupid enough to believe in some stupid dream of a man who clearly never gave a damn about me. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Maybe I just need to get it out. Maybe I need to hear that I'm not the only one who's ever been this dumb for love. I don't know. But I do know one thing. I'm done. Done being the fool. Done thinking love is enough. From now on, it's all about me and my kids. I'll figure out how to deal with this debt, and I'll rise again. But God, what a price to pay for love.
I planned the perfect proposal, but she showed up dressed like a mechanic. And now I'm wondering if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. Okay, so I am 29, have been dating this girl. Let's call her Anna, F 27, for about a year now. And honestly, things have been good, great, even mostly. The sex is like seriously 10-10, no notes. And we can talk for hours about shows, books, music, all that stuff. But, and it's a big but, politics, that's a no-go. She's super intense about her opinions, and I've learned the hard way not to touch certain topics or it becomes a whole thing. Like one wrong comment about recycling, and suddenly I'm the villain destroying the earth personally. So yeah, some of it makes me feel kind of exhausted, but also relationships are about compromise, right? Anyway, I've been thinking lately about us moving in together. She lives in one state over, not too far, but far enough that it's annoying. I figured if we're going to make this a thing long term, maybe it's time we take the next step. And honestly, I want to propose, like before moving in, just to make sure we're on the same page. Is that dumb? I decay. Felt like a nice gesture. Plus, I've got this romantic streak in me, okay? Judge away. So I planned the perfect proposal, at least it was supposed to be. There's this spot we hiked on our second date. Yes, second date hiking, don't ask. It's at the top of this ridge and it overlooks this gorgeous valley with a river winding through it. Perfect place to propose, right? Like, It'll hit all those Instagram-worthy vibes she's into. I even hired a photographer to hide in the trees and take candid shots of me proposing. Figured it'd be cool to capture the moment without her knowing. Surprise and all that. I also booked us a fancy dinner at this restaurant nearby for after. Look, I was going all in, okay? Here's where things started to uh, go sideways. I casually suggested that she wear something nice for the hike, like nothing crazy. I just said, hey, what if you wore that cute summer dress you have? You'd look amazing in the pics. Thought I was being helpful, right? Wrong. She got so mad, like immediately angry. Her face did that thing where she tilts her head and goes, are you actually telling me what to wear? And I was like, no, no, I'm just saying you always look great in that dress. But nope. She went full on. How dare you? I dress for me, not for your patriarchal expectations. And I was sitting there like, holy shh, what just happened? I swear I didn't even mean it like that. It was just a suggestion. But once she was on that train, there was no stopping it. So fast forward to the day of the hike. She shows up in, I kid you not, cargo pants and this oversized shirt with a giant logo on it. Like, I'm talking early 2000s gym teacher vibes. And listen, I'm all for people dressing how they want, but come on. This was supposed to be a romantic moment, a proposal. You don't show up dressed like you're about to go change someone's tires. I tried to keep my cool. The hike itself was fine, mostly us making small talk while I kept sneaking glances at the photographer to make sure everything was in place. We get to the top, and it's just as beautiful as I remembered. The sun is shining, the valley is glowing, and I'm standing there thinking, okay, this is it. This is the moment. I get down on one knee, and as I do, I hear the snap snap of the camera in the distance. Everything's going according to plan, except, of course, for the fact that she looks like she's dressed for a construction site. I pull out the ring, give my little speech, which I nailed, by the way. Thank you very much. And she actually says, yes. Yay, right? Well, kind of. She said yes, but not in a, oh my God, I'm so happy kind of way. More like a, yeah, okay, this is happening vibe. And those photos, yeah, they're awful. I'm down on one knee, looking all emotional and romantic. And she's standing there with her hands on her hips, in her baggy cargo pants, squinting into the sun like she's trying to remember if she locked her car. Afterwards, the photographer showed me a few of the shots and I wanted to cry. They looked terrible. Like imagine a Sears family portrait, but outdoors, and way worse. One picture had her wiping sweat off her forehead, and another had me looking up at her while she was mid-eye roll. Literal nightmare fuel. I sent one to my friend, and he texted back, bro, is she mad or is she allergic to happiness? Not the feedback I was hoping for. We went to dinner after, and the whole night just felt off. She didn't seem that excited about the proposal, and I couldn't stop thinking about those damn photos. I tried to laugh it off, but deep down, it kind of stung. Like, I put so much effort into making this a special moment, and it felt like she just didn't care. IDK, maybe I'm overreacting, but it really sucked. Now I'm sitting here, ring on her finger, wondering what the hell I just signed up for. Is this what the rest of my life is going to be like? Am I going to have to tiptoe around every suggestion I make? Anyway, that's part one, I guess. Proposing was supposed to make things clearer, but now I feel more confused than ever. Maybe I'm just being dramatic, or maybe I missed some major red flags along the way. TLDR, I proposed to my GF on a hike. She showed up dressed like an off-duty mechanic, and the photos are a disaster. Now I'm wondering if I made a huge mistake. Update. So, yeah, things went from awkward to full-blown nightmare real fast. After the proposal, the vibe between us was weird. Like, normally we don't text or call a ton during the week. It's just kind of our thing. But after, you'd think there'd be some excitement, right? Like, we just got engaged, except nothing. Just the same half-hearted, hey, how's it going texts here and there, which felt super off considering, I just proposed to her. The whole thing kept gnawing at me. Usually I drive to see her on the weekends, but this time I couldn't wait. All I could think about was how badly the proposal went, how distant she seemed, and whether I'd completely misread everything. So I took Friday off work, figured I'd surprise her with something nice. Like, maybe the problem was the whole awkward proposal thing, and if I did something sweet, it'd reset the vibe or whatever. Classic romantic idiot brain, right? Anyway, I get to her place around noon. She's still at work, so I let myself in with the spare key she gave me a while back. I figured I'd clean up a bit, make dinner, and just have it ready for when she got home. Maybe we could finally talk and make things feel normal again. I cleaned the whole place, like deep clean. Vacuumed, wiped down the counters, even cleaned the microwave, which looked like it had been storing food from the pre pandemic era. Then I went all out on dinner: steak, roasted veggies, mashed potatoes. I even got a bottle of wine that I knew she liked. Honestly, it felt kind of good doing something nice for her. I was thinking, this is what couples do, right? We hit a rough patch and I step up to make things better. She was supposed to be off work at 6, so I figured she'd be home by 6:30. But then 7 rolled around. Nothing. No texts, no calls. At first, I wasn't worried. Maybe she ran into traffic or had to stay late or something. But by 8, I started to feel kind of weird about it. Like she always lets me know if she's going to be late. By now, I was in full WTF is going on mode, pacing the apartment like a maniac. Finally, at 10 p.m., the door swings open and she stumbles in with some other guy, uh, and not just casually chatting or anything. They're full on making out, barely keeping their balance. Her shirt's half untucked, his belt is halfway undone. It was like a bad movie scene, except I was in it, standing there like idiot in her living room with a perfectly cooked steak sitting on the table. The second she saw me, she stopped dead, just kind of blinked at me all glassy-eyed and slurred, "What are you doing here?" Like I'm the one out of place. The other guy just stood there awkwardly like, I think I'll just go." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe you should, buddy." Once he left, it was just me and her, and the silence was loud. I couldn't even process what the hell I just walked into. Eventually, I asked her, "What the fuck was that? Are you serious right now?" And of course, instead of any sort of apology or explanation, she flips it right back on me. She starts yelling about how hard it's been doing long distance and how unfair it is to expect her to be all in when we're not even living together yet. I was standing there trying to wrap my head around the fact that she was cheating and she's yelling about logistics. Then, somewhere in the middle of all the yelling, she threw in the line that really killed me. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "And this ring? This cheap ass ring? You really thought I'd say yes to this?" I swear, my heart dropped into my stomach. I'd saved for months to get that ring. It wasn't flashy, but it was nice, thoughtful, something I knew she'd like. At least, I thought I knew. Turns out she'd been silently judging it the whole time. And then she said the thing that really sealed the deal: "I don't even want to marry you." Boom. There it was. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just the cold, hard truth laid out in the most brutal way possible. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I just stood there, stunned, while she kept ranting about how I pushed her into a proposal she didn't even want and how I'm too far away for it to ever work. And you know what? I didn't even yell back. I just stood there, nodding, trying to absorb the fact that everything I thought we had was basically a lie. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Engaged for exactly 1 week, only to find out she's been cheating and doesn't even want to marry me. I feel like the dumbest person alive. TLDR, took the day off to surprise my fiancée with dinner, only to catch her stumbling and drunk with another guy. When I confronted her, she screamed about long distance, called the ring cheap, and said she doesn't even want to marry me. Cool, cool, cool. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's been a little over 6 months since my last post. I needed some time to myself, off Reddit, off social media, just off everything, really. But I figured it was time for an update. I'm doing a lot better now, in case anyone was wondering. It was rough for a while, but I've got a great group of friends who really had my back through all of it. I think I forgot how important it is to have that kind of support. After everything went down, I decided to focus on the things I love, but had kind of let slide during the relationship. I got back into hiking, which honestly saved my sanity. I've been going on solo hikes, group hikes, just spending time in nature, clearing my head. I didn't realize how much I missed it until I started doing it again. Same with hanging out with my friends. I guess when I was with her, I kind of put a lot of that stuff on hold without even noticing. But now, I'm back at it, and it feels good. Of course, she tried to come back. I guess people always do, right? She called a few times, left some weird texts. The kicker was when she actually showed up at my place one night out of nowhere, said she wanted to talk, that she missed me, blah, blah, blah. But I was done. I handed her back the key and told her it was time to move on, for both of us. No drama, no yelling, just done. Feels weird saying it, but it was probably the first time in a long time that I felt truly in control of my own life again. On the bright side, things at work have been looking up too. I recently got a promotion that I'd been gunning for. It's been a huge confidence boost after everything that happened. It's like life is slowly falling back into place, piece by piece. As for dating, not really thinking about it right now. I need more time to just enjoy where I'm at without rushing into anything. But eventually, yeah, I think I'll get back out there. Just not today. And that's okay. Anyway, thanks for reading and for all the support. It's been a wild ride, but I'm starting to feel like myself again, and that's more than enough for now. Here's to better days ahead. TLDR, took some time off after everything went down. Doing better now. Back to hiking, spending time with friends, got a promotion at work, cut off all contact with my ex, gave her back the key, and moving on. Not rushing into dating, but life's looking up.